The Growing Destinations podcast is brought to you by Experience Rochester. Learn more about Minnesota's third largest city, which is home to Mayo Clinic and features wonderful recreational and entertainment opportunities by visiting experiencerochestermn.com.
We all just wanted somebody to care about us during COVID. And who can I talk to? Who will listen to me? Who knows what's going on in my world right now? And I think just to have that, I guess I would call it like a therapeutic session where we're here. We know you guys are still there. We're going to be here and we're trying everything we can to stick around. So if there's anything we can help you with, we may or may not be able to do it, but we want to try.
When you're back together with your neighbor and with your friends and with people who may be a little different from you or think a little differently from you, you're reminded that we all enjoy the same things. We enjoy being together. We enjoy a good meal. We enjoy music. We enjoy our communities.
Welcome to the Growing Destinations podcast, where we take a deep dive into destination development and focus on a wide range of topics, from tourism and entertainment to economic development and entrepreneurism, and much more. I'm your host, Bill Von Bank. Events are important to communities. From 5K runs to farmers markets and festivals, events provide many benefits. The shock of the COVID-19 pandemic had greatly impacted the industry. Today I'm joined by two leaders in the events industry who share their perspectives. Mary Anderson is president of Anderson Race Management. Her 25-year-old business, based in the Twin Cities, is involved in 200 running events a year throughout the country. Holly Masek is executive director of the Rochester Downtown Alliance in Rochester, Minnesota. Among her many duties is to program and activate the downtown for the benefit of the businesses, residents, and visitors. Both Mary and Holly shifted to virtual events in the early days of the pandemic, and they both agree that nothing beats live in-person events. Mary Anderson, Holly Masek, welcome to the Growing Destinations podcast.
Very happy to be here today.
Thanks for having us.
Mary, you left the corporate world of accounting to form Anderson Race Management. Give us the backstory.
Well, I worked at Dayton Hudson Corporation, which was Dayton's department stores back in 1990 when I started there. And accounting was going to be my life. I was going to retire from that job in 40 years or whatever it would take to retire at that point. And then I got involved with running and with volunteering for running events, I should say. And a lot of people that worked at Dayton Hudson were also on the board of Twin Cities Marathon. So they asked me to join the board because I was running a lot then, and I was just ecstatic. I grew up in a small town, never thought I could be a part of something like that. And so a lot of us that worked, that were on the board of the Twin Cities Marathon also worked on events just to help each other out because there weren't positions or jobs in the field at the time. So we were all volunteers. So we would all help each other out with their events throughout the year, probably one a month at that time. And it just gradually turned into from a hobby to from a pastime and then to a career. So I ended up going to Lifetime Fitness in 2002 and did events for them for 5 years, and then gradually went on my own in 2007. So that's where it all began. It's now our 25th year. So
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Holly, you took on the role of executive director of the Rochester Downtown Alliance in 2019. Tell us a bit more about you, the Rochester Downtown Alliance, also known as the RDA, and your role.
I grew up in New Hampshire. Nobody even knows where that is here.
East Coast? Maybe?
East Coast, New England. Spent a lot of my schooling and my work life prior to here in Boston, right in the city. And I was always drawn to cities. Even as a kid, we had a really active Main Streets program in my community. I remember the biggest thing they did every year was they'd have a rubber duck race, lottery style event. And then they'd also shut the street down for various holiday events, tree lightings, etc. A beautiful historic Main Street. Tucked all those things away in my head. It never occurred to me that, someone is actually doing this for the community. That is a job, that is a profession. Traveled, went to school, did hospitality for a while. I worked for an eco lodge in Belize. And then I went to school for urban planning as I started to zero in on what I wanted to focus on. Worked in government communications. I've worked for private property owners. I have worked for a public space consulting firm, kind of run the whole gamut of different parts of this operation, but I was always really drawn to business improvement districts or special service districts. I think it's such an interesting model and such a flexible model. What happens is the private property owners in a geographic area get together, decide they want enhanced services for their district, and so they agree to pay a special levy for those services to be performed. It could be cleaning and safety and hospitality work. It could be programs and events. It could be marketing. It really is up to the community what they need in that moment. And the idea is it is a positive feedback loop for everybody. The better we do, the better our property owners are going to do, and the better we can all do in the future, and the more we can do for the community.
And the RDA is a special services district in downtown Rochester, Minnesota.
That's correct. 44 blocks of property owners, businesses. Of course, we have some large institutions some may have heard of adjacent to our special service district, and they play a pretty big role in what we do as well.
And that's Mayo Clinic.
That'd be the one.
Mary, since 1996, you've been involved with all facets of running events. Can you give us perspective on what you do?
Every day we're doing quotes for people. They call us up thinking about, they may not even know what they want to do. And so we walk through some different ideas. Maybe it might be running events, it might be biking events, it could be a triathlon, anything like that. Or groups who are looking to be, there's either fundraising events or there's just awareness events. Our conversation kind of gets directed on what they're looking for or their goals, I guess, if you will. And we're working with cities, with police, fire, ambulances, people who do announcing, garbage, bathrooms, all those fun things. Working with all these vendors to become part of our core group that you wouldn't think are our partners, but they all are partners just like our staff is. And they help us make the events happen. So we're working with these people every single day. We kind of have we joke a bat line to each of the park districts or our vendors so that we can call them up and just say, hey, we need this, this, and this on this date. Or we give them a spreadsheet of all the events that we have coming up to streamline things a little bit easier. We're always trying to think of something new. It kind of gets hard after a while because it takes a lot of energy to think of the new things versus just hitting play and doing what we've always done. But it's super fun, and probably the part I missed most during COVID was not having that one-on-one relationship with everybody and talking to them about what their goals are and why they're doing this event or that event.
Well, that leads into my next question. How did you survive the last couple years dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic? Yep. Because running events, you do them in person.
Yes, exactly. So we moved to virtual, which is definitely not any of our fellow counterparts around the country. We don't like the virtual thing. We want to be there in person. We want to make a difference. We want to see the smiles and feel the emotion. You just don't get that with a virtual event. However, saying that, the virtual events did kind of carry us through this hard time as far as keeping people engaged and having something to do. They by no means could ever replace a live event, but they helped us through. Now that we're past COVID for the most part, a lot of the virtual stuff is kind of moving past this point. We're not hopefully going to do too much of that because it's just hard to keep the energy level going. It's also one more thing to manage, which with virtual, we only see a fraction of what we normally get for live events.
When did live running events return for you in person?
We kind of had sporadic pieces of it where things would open up for just a few weeks. We had a few events in the late fall of 2020 where there was about a 5 to 6 week period where we could actually do a few events. So we were ecstatic over that. Then things closed down again, and then things opened up about a year ago now, about the first part of April, slightly.
In 2021?
In 2021, yes. And then, but what we did during COVID is we expanded into South Dakota because they remained open. So we saw a market there, and we were able to expand greatly out there, which has been wonderful for us.
But you are all over the country with running events. Weren't you recently in San Antonio, Texas?
Yep. We travel pretty much mostly throughout the Midwest is what our base is, but we also do go throughout the country and have a couple events in Texas.
Holly, you plan so many events for the community. How have the last 2 years been for your organization?
I think it's very hard to keep morale up when you're in, out, canceling, going forward. Many of the things Mary said resonated with me. Events aren't the only thing we do, so we were able to lean on some of our other strengths during this time. We did a lot of grant making for our business community. We did a lot of more smaller scale programs for the public, really concentrated on making our public spaces downtown very lovely with furniture and plantings, helping the restaurants extend their patios. So while those weren't the large community festivals that our downtown expects from us, we thought those were the most important ways to use our talents for the community to give them what they needed at that time, which was more low-key gathering spaces outside where people could conduct their business, see their friends, feel safe. We did dip a toe in some virtual adaptations of what we do. We tried to have a virtual version of our large artisan market alongside live-streamed concerts on unexpected spaces downtown, like rooftops and patios, places we thought it'd be really fun for people to guess, where's the RDA going to be next? And then there'd be a surprise pop-up concert. And in a perfect world, we'd hope to maybe start a whisper campaign and get a bunch of people showing up. But we had to keep everything super under wraps until the concerts happened because we didn't want to gather a crowd. We did have to cancel our largest event very carefully. It usually runs for 3 months in the summer. Thursdays downtown every Thursday.
And that was in 2020.
2020. This all came down the pipeline in March, and the event kicks off in June. We spent a fair amount of time looking at finances, talking to our partners, thinking through what happens with the sponsors we've already received. Do we roll them forward? Do we refund them? What do we do? There's so much cost wrapped up in the events and so much investment of time and money, and really making those decisions very carefully. The most important thing for us, and I'm sure for you, Mary, was communication, being as honest as we could, especially with those larger sponsors, of saying, we don't know what's going to happen. If you want to pull out at this point, we get it, but here's what we're going to try to do. And we do plan to be back next year. So if you want to stick with us, you can sponsor something else. You can work with us this way. You can help us stay afloat into the future, knowing we will be coming back. And so we're very grateful for those sponsors that stuck with us. We had to furlough staff during this period of time. That was very stressful, really hard decisions to make. And it was not easy. And we were lucky last year. Most of our activities are outdoors, so we don't have the same flux of indoor-outdoor masks, no masks that everybody has been having, though we do question what recommendations to make at any given event. But this year, we thought we were totally in the clear, and we were having a huge ice bar festival that we were excited to bring back. It brings 60,000 people over 3 days. And
usually around February
Usually
timeframe.
in February, and we're like, it's outdoors, we're through it. Everybody who wants to get vaccinated is vaccinated. Numbers are down, and then you hear those little murmurs of a variant and whatever. And next thing you know, we're on the phone with public health 2 weeks prior to the event. They really discouraged us from doing it. So we had to completely flip the script. We turned it into social lights instead of social ice. We had 4 weeks to create a totally new event using a medium we'd never worked with to that extent before, which was light. It was a very challenging experience, also in a new space that had recently been renovated, so we didn't know all the challenges of that either. And I really compliment my team and the bars and restaurants that stuck with us through the event to figure it out. Our production teams, everybody worked together. And what else did you say? You said something about the people you're constantly on the phone with. The partnerships and relationships, they matter so much.
Keeping communication going, not only with sponsors and partners, but also with the participants and our clients. Because our clients, we started a monthly call with our clients just to update them on COVID procedures, which is really what it started out with, or what we knew and what we hoped would happen. Some of it was speculation. We've continued that monthly phone call with our clients, more so just to touch base. And the other reason why we did it before was to let them know we're still here. We're still going. We're still moving ahead. And we heard a lot about that was like one way, just stay engaged with them, to let them know you're still alive, because a lot of our competition just kind of fizzled away, or they were close to retirement, so they retired, and people just went away. And so it's been really nice to continue these monthly calls, which now really aren't COVID related, but they're just a touch base. And whoever wants to be on the call can be on it. And it's a interactive conversation where people can ask any question they have, or we're just delving out information that we might know, something new or about, or sponsor information or whatever that we might have an update on.
Holly, you do a similar approach with your downtown partners on a monthly basis called Downtown Dialogues. Give us a little insight into that.
We started a weekly call on Fridays in January of 2021 because we realized the thing that was hurting us the most, no matter how much we felt like we were doing and how closely we were working with the city, was a sense of disconnection. Our stakeholder community wasn't seeing us enough or hearing from us enough. We were there, but if they weren't being connected with directly, they weren't feeling it. And so we started this call. It's an hour every Friday. It's an agenda of maybe 6 to 10 speakers of everything we knew that was going on downtown that we thought the downtown community needed to know about. There was a lot of construction happening. There were COVID-19 updates, businesses coming in and out, new regulations all the time, new programs coming online, grant opportunities, anything we had we thought they needed to know, with a nice chunk of time at the end for Q&A, because the questions were very helpful. We surveyed frequently to find out what people wanted to know, and we tried to be responsive to that with our agendas. And we built a lot of other relationships in doing that. And knowing that at one point we had the cell phones of all the people we needed to talk to at any given point, whether it was the public health director or the city administrator, was so helpful because we could get the information people needed to them directly. Eventually, the need for that pace waned, and so we went down to every other week. And now we're every month, but we've complemented it with in-person coffee hours. And now we go out and do site visits in that time slot that we had used. And I cannot emphasize enough how important continuing to be connected is.
I agree. Totally.
Mary, do you think being proactive that way early helped you keep clients?
Yeah, definitely. The other thing that I did, I served with Twin Cities Marathon and Grandma's Marathon on a committee with the governor so that we would know what was going on when, or hopefully have some more ideas with when things would open up for us or what things we would have to either change or move ahead with. So being able to update them with that information was really critical. And sometimes, again, it was just speculation based on the conversations we had and what we thought we would see coming down the pipeline. So I think it was hugely critical. Plus, I think, as we all know, we all just wanted somebody to care about us during COVID. And who can I talk to? Who will listen to me? Who knows what's going on in my world right now? And I think just to have that, I guess I would call it like a therapeutic session where we're here. We know you guys are still there. We're going to be here and we're trying everything we can to stick around. So if there's anything we can help you with, we may or may not be able to do it, but we want to try. So I think it was hugely critical.
How do you organize 200 running events with a small staff?
Yeah, we stay really organized. I have an amazing gal who works with me side by side every day, who's extremely organized, and she takes all of the client communication once we sign on with a contract. So she's communicating with them every day and puts amazing notes together for every event that we have, so that our clients, our sponsors, their clientele, all the vendors are on the same page. That is very important to each of us so that nobody is caught off guard with, oh, I thought you were bringing this, or I thought you were doing that. So those notes are extremely important. And, the first year is always the hardest with an event. After that, we pretty much have a well-oiled machine and can carry things pretty easily. But yeah, we have a lot of new events this year, which is amazing. I will never complain about the stress of having too many events. I can handle that stress any day compared to the stress of trying to figure out where my next bill is going to be paid from.
Holly, you have a huge event in the summer. You talked about it earlier for 3 months, every Thursday. It's called Thursdays Downtown. Tell us more about that event because it's big.
It is big. It covers 2 pieces of a public plaza, 2 roads. We have 10 to 20,000 people come every day. It runs from 11 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. 2 stages, 6 bands, 100 vendors, up to 130 vendors actually at peak capacity. And so it takes over downtown. You know when we're doing this because we're out there at 6 a.m. getting it ready. And every events director we've worked with has said, you know, this could be somebody's full-time job. This could be a team's full-time job. And we pull it off with a small staff of 4 to 5 people, many of whom are working on other things. But I think it's really become very central to the identity of downtown Rochester. We love that all these people come to see what we do, that they get to meet all their friends downtown. Now that we're in an era of remote work and hybrid work, we thought it played such an important role in reminding people to come downtown last summer. And we'll continue it for as long as the community enjoys it.
What's so interesting about that event, because I go to it a lot, is just to see the diversity of people in the crowd, whether they're employees at Mayo Clinic, patients at Mayo Clinic, families. I mean, it's a broad spectrum.
We try to have something for everyone. With 120 different vendors, you can kind of achieve that. We've been really making a concerted effort in the last few years to diversify the musical acts as well, so that people in our community can see themselves on stage.
We've just wrapped up the first quarter of 2022. And Holly, you've mentioned that you've already had to pivot with one of your big winter events. How do you plan for the rest of 2022, knowing that there could be another variant that could disrupt your plans?
Well, with me, I just keep moving full force ahead, planning that it's going to continue the way we need it to. And if we need to make a change, we will. But luckily, with all of our events being outside, we aren't as affected as some other groups are. I don't see a full shutdown happening again. So I think that's what it would take for our industry to be impacted. We are seeing numbers of participants being down. However, the number of events are going up for us. So it's wonderful.
You both joined me for this interview at the Mayo Civic Center in Rochester, Minnesota, which is host to this year's Minnesota Festival and Events Association annual conference. Mary, you also serve on the board of directors of this association. Share with us the association's important role for Minnesota's events industry.
The networking is phenomenal, and you can't even put a price on that. It's also very therapeutic in a way because we all are in the events industry, and we can all talk about the issues or the fun or the concerns that we have, especially what's so ironic is that we were all together 2 years ago in Duluth for the conference, the day, as I call it, the world exploded or imploded on us, and we were all standing around a radio or our phones listening to the governor's announcement that things were going to be shutting down, and here we are all together in the events world and at a conference where we're supposed to be like rah-rah, kumbaya, and then our world is imploding, and we're like, oh my gosh, we have to get home. We have to get back to our terrain and figure out what we're going to do to figure out what our next steps are. We didn't even know what to do, and like this was really happening. So just the camaraderie that this group has, and we may just be together once a year, or some of us work together almost every weekend. It's just a family that supports each other, and the feelings we all get. Somebody said this last night, like, this is my home. This is where we belong. And it was good to be home again with our cronies and our tribe, if you will. And we just all support each other in whatever positive way, or maybe there's something negative we need to talk about, and we figure out how to work that out. So we're family, I think, is the best way to describe it.
2 of my colleagues are here, and I told them, I want you to go because I want you to learn things and I want you to network. But mostly in my heart, I was like, you need some catharsis with your people.
Yes.
Like, you all need to get together and talk about how hard and crazy this year has been, because to be an event planner in the best of circumstances means you're working crazy hours and you're on your feet for 16 hours at a time, putting out fires left and right. And
juggling several things at the same time.
I cannot believe you were an accountant before you.
I know, it's kind of crazy from one end of the spectrum to the other.
Absolutely, because accountants are like,
yep,
I just want my day controlled. You had your 40-year plan.
I think I've figured out that I probably have had ADD, and I didn't even realize it because I love race directing, which is exactly moving from one position to the next, to the next, to the next, and troubleshooting. And like, I didn't even know it, but I guess I self-diagnosed myself as having ADD. And that race directing is the best position for me.
It works for you.
That makes total sense to me. But it works so well for event planning.
Holly, why are festivals and events important to communities?
So many reasons. We have our very basic business arguments. There's huge economic impact. For us, we can generate between 6 and 10 million in economic impact every single year that we're doing large events like this. And we measure that by surveying our attendees, asking them how much they spend, where have they gone, did they visit a restaurant, did they stay in a hotel. Pretty typical information. But on a more community-minded way to describe it, I'd say it's because it brings everyone together, and that used to be a symbolic thing to say, and now it's an actual literal thing to say.
So important.
So important. We've been apart for so long. It has really eroded our connections, our social fabric, the way we interact with each other in many ways. There's been so much hiding behind social media, and it's very easy for people to become their worst selves online when they're far away. And when you're back together with your neighbor and with your friends and with people who may be a little different from you or think a little differently from you, you're reminded that we all enjoy the same things. We enjoy being together. We enjoy a good meal. We enjoy music. We enjoy our communities. And so I think it's so important. I'm so glad we can bring people together in this way.
Mary, you talked earlier about the infrastructure behind events. Kind of delve into that, because there's a lot of money behind running events in general, but I don't think people really truly understand what it takes to put on a single event.
Yes, that's correct. Especially when people just come up with an idea. They'll call us and we're like, okay, have you thought about all these different components? And they're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize there was so much that's involved, which again adds expense to events too. We're seeing events become more and more expensive because there might be more permits or requirements, medical, for instance, or garbage or sound permits, different things that we never saw in the past. Or the more inner city we get, the more rules there are, or things that we have to abide by, or protocols, which definitely is warranted because we need obviously more police in Minneapolis than we would in Eagan, for instance, for events or to shut down streets, etc. So I think a lot of the pieces are things that people think about right away. Maybe police, maybe barricades, but there's a lot more than that. There's insurance. That's not a fun thing to buy, but you definitely have to have it. There's T-shirts, for instance, for running events. Medals now have become a big thing. But the things that you don't see are maybe certain signage that we have to require or are required to put out to close streets because it's going to impact an area. Different services that you don't even see, maybe sound. You don't necessarily think about it, but you have to have sound for a bigger event, and that entails maybe different permits, a lot more equipment, maybe specialized people. There's a lot of things that go into it that people don't even realize, and they think, oh, I can just put this together. And so that's been one thing that's been really good for us, because the more difficult things begin to require things to be done, then we can step in and make that an easy process. We try to tell our clients, especially fundraising people, that it's your party. Let us do the grunt work, and then you can have fun and enjoy your day and hopefully seek out and schmooze with the sponsors that you want to create relationships with.
This has been such a fascinating conversation. Before we wrap, I just want to ask both of you, what are some lessons you've learned over the past couple of years?
Well, for me, how much I love what I do. And how much it's tied to my identity, probably, because I was lost for, several months trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do? I went back to my accounting life for a few months just to have a paycheck. And all I kept thinking was, I want to be loading a truck. I want to be at an event. So I've realized how much I do love what I do and how much it's a part of me and how much I love creating the relationships that I have with my clients or the vendors or whoever that I work with. And that's what brings me joy, to make a difference in somebody's life and to raise money for their charity or their cause. And to see that smile as they're coming across the finish line, as I'm going to cry saying all this stuff. But it's just such a cool position to be able to have.
Holly, some lessons learned?
How can I follow that?
Give it a shot.
Oh, very practical things. Communication, so important. And really just how I am not an events person. I manage event people. I am an awe of events people. And we have a really close relationship with everyone we work with. And I watch them go through those emotional upheavals and just how rattled and painful it was for all of them. And I just double, triple, quadruple appreciation for everything that you and your colleagues do. You make miracles happen. You've worked with us every step of the way and said, yeah, we can do that with 2 weeks notice. Why not? Let's figure it out. We'll stay up all night. Anything you want, because we want to do what we do.
Yep. Our motto with us is that we never let the clients see us sweat. So they might come to us with some crazy idea or thing, or I forgot, blah, blah, blah. We can make that happen. As we turn around, we're like, oh my gosh, we're cringing and we're like, oh, how are we going to do this? But we turn around and we're like, we're going to do it. We're going to make it happen.
I'd say the other thing is I wish I had invested in porta potties before the pandemic.
Yes.
I think that the cost has tripled. And I think that would have been a great choice. So if you want to start a side business with me,
yes, great.
I'm in for it.
Can we have something fun mixed in there too, maybe? I don't know what, food trucks or something like that?
Yeah, but I was thinking of making them beautiful, like working with local artists.
That's a great
and
idea.
Vinyl wrapping them.
Yes.
They were going to be called Pretty Potties.
I like it.
You in?
I'm in.
Okay,
I'm in.
Cool.
Mary Anderson, Holly Masek, great conversation today. I just love your passion for what you do. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill. This was an honor.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for tuning in to the Growing Destinations podcast. And don't forget to subscribe. This podcast is brought to you by Experience Rochester. Find out more about Rochester, Minnesota and its growing arts and culture scene, its international culinary flavors, and award-winning craft beer by visiting experiencerochestermn.com.